So, and the Commissioner is joining me in studio. So, Commissioner, first off, good to have you in person here, and thank you for joining us to talk about such an important topic.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, Commissioner, you testified at the City Council hearing saying the proposed elimination of solitary confinement would really hinder the ability to run the jail. Why do you feel that way?
Well, we have to have a process in place where we have an individual that commits a violent act against another person in custody or a staff member. And we have to be able to remove that individual for the sake of the victims or the future victims that they could do violent acts against and put them in restrictive housing. And in restrictive housing is humane, but it allows us to better control and provide programming services to that individual so that they don't harm someone else.
So the public advocate had this to say, and I'm just going to quote him here. He said, "Correction officers, I see you. I know there's a real harm being done to you." He goes on to say that the bill ends the harmful practice of solitary confinement, but does not ban separation when it's necessary to protect incarcerated individuals in staff. He's saying that just a limited amount of time away from the rest of the population is what is needed. Do you agree with this?
I do not agree. That is not sound correctional practice. We do not have solitary confinement in the Department of Corrections. I do not support solitary confinement. But we need to have a mechanism in place that removes a violent individual when they commit a violent act against another person to make sure that other people are safe. And that's the restrictive housing model that we have on Rikers Island called enhanced supervisionary housing.
So how does the enhanced supervision housing differ from what exactly their proposal is? Because if you're saying solitary is already ending, you're removing somebody from population, you're putting them somewhere, are they by themselves?
No, they're not by themselves, right? So they're in a smaller size housing unit with a small number of individuals that are also there for the same sort of violent acts. They're allowed 7 hours out of cell versus 14 hours out of cell. There is a diminishment of some amenities that they would not have access to if they were in general population. But the goal of that 7 hours that they're out of cell is to have 5 hours of programming so that they can help learn not responding to issues of conflict with violence.
So what is your issue then with the bill as it stands? Because the public advocate's bill, which is poised to pass, says that they should be able to immediately separate a person and begin the process of assigning them to restrictive housing when necessary.
So the technical language of the bill, what it does is it allows you to remove someone and put them in de-escalation housing, but they would only be in that housing for 4 hours. In addition to the 4 hours while they're there, the bill also requires that medical clinicians do medical visits on them every 15 minutes, which is just to operationalize from a staffing standpoint would be very, very high. After that 4 hours, we would have to put them back in general population. And the reason why that is because under the bill, they would want the person that just committed a violent act to have a hearing, be represented by legal counsel, and that process could take anywhere from 7 to 10 days. It would put the jail in a state of anarchy.
So I've heard you use the term anarchy before. This is poised to pass. So because of the majority of the City Council, what is your game plan then moving forward?
So I've been meeting with individuals, members of the City Council. I've been meeting with groups of members of the City Council to let them know what are the challenges of the technical language of that bill. We've been sharing and touring with many of them our current restrictive housing model. And also, just to remind the public, the federal judge in our consent judgment did order the city to hire a classification consultant to help guide us in developing a restrictive housing plan that has to be approved by the federal monitor, and this bill undermines that.
Understood. So, while this is all going on, as you know, there's been 16 deaths on Rikers Island as of this taping. Many point to solitary as or punitive segregation, whatever you want to call it, as a contributing factor to this. You are the commissioner. You have about 9 months on the job. Why do you think there are so many deaths this year?
So a number of issues. We have a lot of individuals that come into our custody that have pre-existing health conditions, co-occurring conditions of drug addiction that they're battling. So we're getting many individuals that are just unhealthy. And in some of those cases, their health situation and when their prognosis has led to people passing away. We also inherited a department that was on the brink of collapse. And we're rebuilding and restabilizing that system over the last 10 months. And we've done a lot over the last 10 months to make the island safer for people in custody and staff as well.
you're talking about some of those health issues and drugs, which we have obviously been talking about for years now, about drugs coming on to Rikers Island. There was an investigation that came out from another media organization, New York One, which I'm sure you saw, talked about a rise in overdose deaths on Rikers Island from 2021 until now, some of those being those 16 that we've seen. How are you addressing that?
Sure. So one is, I think it's important to point out that this is not exclusively an issue for the New York City Department of Corrections. Fentanyl use is on the rise nationwide, and overdoses nationwide
how is it getting into
high.
a jail?
So what we're doing is we intercept and interdict a lot of contraband coming in via the mail. We have canine narcotics dogs that we're deploying at a higher rate now. We're intercepting that. We're looking at technology where we can possibly have the detainees correspond with their families electronically so that they can read their mail that way. We have our tactical search operations with calendar year to date have seized over 1,000 drug paraphernalia that have come into the system. And so we're doing a lot to sort of mitigate against it.
Commissioner, when I say this with respect, was that not happening all along?
Drugs coming in?
No, the prevention of these drugs.
It was not happening. I mean, from the from the interview you referenced, tactical search operations are very valuable tool in corrections. One was conducted in 2021. Calendar year to date, we've conducted 40. Right? We've seized over 4,000 weapons out of the jail system. The basic correctional practices during the last administration were just not being done.
Yeah. And Commissioner, you obviously have a tough job and a long road ahead of you. Some of these issues that we've been talking about have plagued the system for over a decade, right? And you have said, give me some time. What are you looking to do in the short term to correct some of these problems?
So in the short term, we've gotten a significant number of staff back. We had a big staff absentee issue, and that's been addressed. We have a long way to go, but a significant number of staff have come back. We've reopened contractual program providers to come in and provide services to the population. Career technical education. We've partnered with the faith-based community. And over the last 10 months, we have done a lot to mitigate against drugs coming in, to make the jail safer, and to support our staff so that we have an organizational health strategy to make sure that they have the resiliency to serve the vulnerable population in our custody.
And but you support the path to closure?
Well, the BBJ, the law for closing Rikers Island passed. I'm a law enforcement officer, so I support the law.
Understood. Commissioner, I appreciate you being here with this honest conversation. It's an important issue, and I'd like to keep in touch with you to carry this conversation on, okay?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.